Okay, Nigel, so we've talked about your jockey career and we're going to talk about your current career now. But I'm just interested, you said you fell out with David Barons. I mean, you had such success with him. What happened there, if you don't
Yeah,
mind
it's
asking?
no, it happens all the time in racing, but obviously everybody's on a high after he won the national. I rode Seagram, must have been 3 weeks after that, in the Whitbread, which I think they call it the ever what it is nowadays, the last race, at Sandown. And if I remember right, we jumped the last, it must have been 2 lengths off or something like that. We jumped the last in the Whitbread, nearly offsides or in front. And it's it takes a lot to explain, but halfway at the run, I think it was Docklands Express comes out. The horse that came past us, I felt the horse just take a big sigh, if that makes sense. And I think that was the day he broke his heart. It really did. He'd been a great servant to then. I rode him first time out the following season at Cheltenham. And I said straight, I said, this horse is gone. He never gave me any feel at all, didn't want to be there. And eventually they took me off the horse and put another jockey on it, and the horse never finished the race again. So it was always a little bit sour because basically he wasn't, I thought the world of the horse I bound to, and basically their reaction was I was being too soft on him, which was very hard to take. I wasn't being soft, but I knew that horse better than anybody else, and the horse he broke his heart in the Whitbread, and he was never the same horse again. And as I said, you've only got to see this record after that. The horse actually got moved to Josh Gifford of all places at the end, but I don't think he ever completed the race.
All right, now, you mentioned quite early on in this interview that even before you didn't really want to be a jockey, you always wanted to be a trainer. So, how does somebody learn to be a trainer? I'm looking on your bookshelf, I can't see any How to Be a Trainer books up there.
No. No, I think, how would you be? You just learn. And I think, funny enough, even when I was riding, I used to love riding out of different yards because I was just quite passionate about how people did it different and one thing another. And just going on to a quick story there, going back to New Zealand there, the gentleman I rode for in New Zealand was Kenny Brown. Well, Kenny Brown basically ran jump racing in New Zealand. He was Martin Pipe of the time of New Zealand jump racing, and always said he taught Mark Todd to ride. Well, they say Mark Todd was the best horseman in the world, and Kenny Brown taught him to ride. So it tells you what he was brilliant horseman. And definitely when I was in New Zealand, they were the fittest, healthiest horses I've ever sat on. And all right, I know a lot of them are trained from the field and they had fresh air, which was a great asset. But the fitness level of these horses was huge, absolutely huge. Now, it's when I started training, I wanted to nearly do a Kenny Brown. There's certain things he did which I thought were brilliant, but I most probably wasn't quite brave enough to do it because no one else was doing it in this country at the time. And as you always do when you start off, you start with a lot of moderate horses, and then people, well, you can't train, they're not fit and that. The horses just weren't good enough. And it's only in the last few years, funny, having Eddie with me has been a great man to my confidence because obviously we used to spend a lot of time talking about Martin Pipe and his methods and one thing and another. And he's interestingly made a statement about Gordon Elliott. Now, I know Gordon Elliott was at Martin Pipe's, but he never trained like Martin Pipe. And what Gordon Elliott is doing in Ireland is identical to what Kenny Brown was doing in New Zealand. And funny enough, I've seen it at McCare's in France as well. There's certain type of how they're training horses. And that's what we've done in the last few years, is transfer that and put it here. It's only, I've been brave enough to do it because I know somewhere who's done it this part of the world, and it definitely works, and it definitely works here. We got a system, our horses are fit and well, and it definitely works.
And there's no point me asking you what that is because you don't want everybody to know, do you? Which is fair enough. I mean, when did you take out your licence first, and where did you train first?
Too long ago. To be honest, I don't know. I mean, basically, after my injury, I was in Cornwall. As I said, I couldn't do anything for 2 or 3 years because I couldn't drive. Even when I started training, I don't think I could drive a car. Unfortunately, the farm I was on, my uncle's farm, he died. And fair enough, his wife decided wanted to sell the farm. So I was in a little bit of predicament. Either I go back to the father's farm, or that was the plan. Funny enough, looking through in the Western Morning News one day, there was an advert about a yard in Chard in Somerset, owned by Peter Blackburn. or Robert Blackburn now, and I advertised it, went saw the place, and that's why I started there. But it's the same as I was in the right place at the right time. Got very friendly with him. Funny enough, Robert's daughter married Dan Skelton. I got very friendly with Paul Nichols. So it's amazing what a small old world, the racing world is, if you know what I mean. But that's where I started, at Robert Blackburn's yard.
And now you're here at Thorne Farm in Devon. Mm-hmm. Was it an existing racing yard when you moved in it?
No, certainly not. Certainly not. It had been a tenanted farm for over 200 years. Hadn't been touched properly for a long time. Lucky position with the barn is now was basically a lambing shed at some stage. We flattened everything, although there was an awful lot. We had no electricity here for 5 years. Our own private supply of water, so you can imagine what the place was like. And priority was the barn. We put the barn up, put the gallop up, and then we did a bit to the house afterwards. So it's work in progress all the time. But a lucky position of being here. It's your own property. We can do what we want when we want, and we're not being dictated by anyone.
And how many horses do you have here, and how many can you take?
We got 2 barns. We can take round about 60, but we've always got between 60, 70, 80 horses round the time, because, as you know, we'll come on to it later on, but obviously Tiger Row, but we got the ground, we got the space here. We're in the business of producing young horses all the time. I wish, we haven't got huge checkbooks, so the only way we can produce nice horses is do it ourselves.
Okay, so I'm going to go on to that. How big a part of your business is the buying and selling of horses?
Well, obviously everybody knows the Tiger Row, and don't get me wrong, it'd been lovely to keep them, but as a business we had to sell because we've got to keep the money ticking over all the time. Nowadays I'm trying the better horses. I can either be a racehorse trainer or a bloodstock agent. At the moment I'd like to be a racehorse trainer, so if I got a good horse I'll do my utmost to find owners to keep them in the yard. Okay,
so do you buy or breed more?
Doing both now, and to be honest, we had a great connection with Jim Bolger. We've done very well his type of horses in Ireland. I still go to France. We got 6-7 broodmares here, so we're doing a little bit everything, to be fair.
And what percentage would be to order or how many you bought on spec to sell on?
Obviously, the ones with breeders on spec. So we've got nice foals, yearlings, 2-year-olds coming up through all the time now, so that's work in progress. You can't buy too much on spec because it's finances. You can't be holding, and to be honest, the type of horse we're buying are usually a big backward type of horse, which are the ones we can afford. But it's work in progress. It's 2 years down the road before you do much with them.
And this is what you call young stock?
Young stock, yes.
Yeah. And you're also keen on syndicates. You got your own racing syndicates.
Yeah, very keen on that. I think that's the way the racing's going to go. I think the day I was talking so earlier about it, the day of sole ownership is getting more and more expensive all the time. I think syndicates are a great idea. They've done very well in Australia and played other parts of the world, and I think we've got to get on bandwagon and do the same thing.
Okay, now you get a lot of winners that come out from the yard. One thing I have noticed, they appear to be well supported when they win. Would you describe yourself as a gambling yard?
No, no. I love to be clever and say we were. We haven't. My job as a trainer to get them fit and well and do as well as I can and find the right races. These great tipsters, what's going to happen? And I said, well, you know the form as well as I do, you tell me. But that's my job, is to get them fit as well as possible. I generally think it snowballs a little bit. It's a lot of these type of things, a little bit of money, a good price, and people get onto it, and it's a snowball all the time. But, quite often we're having a run, a lot of these horses are halved in price.
Okay, so... And also, I mean, the yards you've got the young stock, you train the horses. You also produce your own feed. You got sheep. Is that all just to keep, just to diversify?
Well, it's all part of the business. I mean, especially in this time of this day and age, you ain't going to make a fortune training racehorses. So you need other businesses to keep things going. Now, what I don't want to do, especially training races, you do a job, you do it properly or not at all. So if I got a skinflint because we can't afford to do it, I don't want to do it. So obviously, but all our other businesses, it keeps the race courses going.
I imagine a lot of yards have got a bit of a farming business going on, but not many have got their own wedding venue and Airbnbs with jacuzzis. Not to make this an advert, but you do, don't you?
Yes, more so the wife than me. But she's quite incredible and things like that. Our father is well known as a real innovator and many great things, and she's in her blood as well, and she's always up to new ideas.
Okay, right. So back to the racing. We've seen what it's like at Cheltenham these days. You talked about the Grand National already, the amount of Irish horses. So a lot of good horses owned by good UK owners that are being sent to Ireland for the detriment of UK trainers, obviously, because if they're training them, you aren't. So why do you think that is?
I don't know. Well, I do and I don't. I'm probably one of my best horses I've just lost going to Ireland, which I'm not happy about. But why do they do it? They say prize money. I've got an inkling people like to be seen, obviously at the present moment, Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott are the people who are having a lot of winners, and I like to be associated with them. Gavin Conroy as well. It is a bit of a worry, but it's that racing, it swings and roundabouts. It's frightening to see Cheltenham this year, the number of Irish horses there. We can do the job as good as well as them. In fact, I find it quite hard to believe because racing in Ireland is so competitive. It doesn't make sense to me. Right, don't get me wrong, the prize money is better, but they're just very good competitive races. And no one can say they're doing the job better than us. I wish I knew. I could wave a magic wand and tell you the answer to that, but I just it's fashions, and unfortunately people are quite they like to be seen with the right people.
But is there anything they do in Ireland that maybe British racing could adopt, which is a good idea?
Yeah, I think there's lots of little things like schooling races. I think, obviously, of course, we were in that stage of producing young horses. I like the schooling races. I think at the early stage, the trainers, I think they're more helpful in Ireland to a trainer than they certainly are in this country.
What is a schooling race? Because half the races appear to be schooling races.
I didn't say that. No, they do. I know Eddie was telling me before with Kieran, he rides a lot of these schooling races, and they have 6 or 7 races a day, non-racing days, and just teaching the horses a job, which is a brilliant thing. It's good money for the race course. It's a no-brainer. It's good for everybody, but unfortunately in this country they just haven't latched onto these sort of things.
And is that behind closed doors, or do you get touts looking through the bushes? And,
No, I don't. It's all pretty. I don't know myself because I've never been to one, but it's only listening to other people. But I just feel they could be more helpful in this country to these type of things to help us. I mean, I do like young horses, take them away for a day. We used to go Kempton when they shut the doors a little bit there now. All Jockey Club courses, they're stopping them use after racing, give them the gallop, although I know 1 or 2 trainers still do it. We do go to Lambourne, but I'm a great believer to give young horses a day out before they actually hit the racetrack first time out.
All right, coming to the end of this, Nigel. Not many people have ridden and trained a Grand National winner. I don't think there's anybody alive, actually. So is that something that you've got on your bucket list? Would that be a dream of yours? To train one? You bought one, you get the treble off if you train one.
Well, of course it would be. I think my biggest goal in racing is to keep on enjoying it. Enjoyment is the most important thing. Make it pay and have success. But you've got to be realistic. You've got to be realistic again. And as long as you keep it at a certain level, make sure you enjoy the game. That's the most important thing. Of course, I would love to win a national. I'd love to win lots of things, but got to be realistic about it. And all we can do is what we're doing at the moment and do the best we can. And
finally, British racing, especially jump racing, is the future bright?
Is the future bright? It's going the right direction. It's got a long way to go, but it's going the right direction.
Brilliant. Well, Nigel Hawke, thank you very much.
Thank you.